I don't know what hurt more, the words or the casual way they were said. Like I wasn't even in the room. Like I was invisible. I had just walked into the break room after a long morning rush. My apron was stained with coffee from a spilled order, and I was holding my half-eaten granola bar in one hand and a stack of receipts in the other. I paused, frozen, as I heard Marcus, the assistant manager, laughing with two new hires. They were sitting on the couch, scrolling their phones and chatting, completely unaware I was standing behind the doorway. "She takes this job way too seriously," one of the girls giggled. "Like, girl, it's minimum wage. Not the Olympics." Marcus snorted. "She's been here, what, 5 years now? Still behind the register. Some people just don't have ambition." I stood there in silence. The buzzing vending machine suddenly sounded louder. I swallowed hard, blinked fast, and turned around before anyone noticed I'd come in. I couldn't afford to cry. Not here. Not again. I walked back out and returned to the front counter like nothing happened. Like those words hadn't cracked something deep inside me. I greeted customers, handed out change, smiled at screaming toddlers. But inside, I was shrinking. It wasn't the first time I'd heard it, and it probably wouldn't be the last. But for some reason, this time was different. Maybe it was the fact that I had skipped lunch to help cover someone's shift. Maybe it was the way Marcus said my name, like it was a punchline. Or maybe it was the way it reminded me of what everyone else always thought of me. Just a cashier. Just. I got home that night and dropped my keys on the floor. My apartment was small, barely furnished, but clean. I always kept it neat, a habit from growing up with a mother who believed mess equaled laziness. I microwaved some leftovers, sat on the edge of my twin bed, and stared at my phone screen. No missed calls. No new messages. My family barely checked in anymore. My younger sister, Brianna, was off traveling again, her Instagram full of beaches, cafes, and boutique hotels. Sponsored influencer life. She used to laugh at me, too. "Jess, why do you waste your time at that dusty store? You're smart. You could do something better." But she never offered help. Never asked how I was managing 2 jobs and online night classes. I closed the app. I didn't need reminders tonight. I started this job at Harvest Mart when I was 19. It was supposed to be temporary, a way to support myself after moving out of my mom's place. I was going to do this for a year, maybe 2, while figuring out college. Then life happened. Bills piled up. My car broke down. I tried community college twice but had to drop out each time to pick up more shifts. Rent didn't care about dreams. But I never complained. I showed up early. Took extra shifts, covered for others. I learned the names of every regular who walked in, knew which customers were allergic to peanuts, and who liked exact change. Still, I remained just a cashier. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Marcus's voice echoing in my head. "She's been here 5 years, no ambition." My chest felt tight. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't unambitious. I just didn't have anyone backing me. No savings account. No parents paying tuition. No fallback plan. Everything I had, I earned. So why did I feel so small? Tears slipped down the sides of my face and disappeared into my pillow. I didn't sob. I didn't wail. It was a quiet kind of crying. The kind that comes from somewhere deep. The kind that doesn't scream. It sinks. And in that silence, something shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even pride. It was resolve. I didn't know what it would look like yet. But I knew one thing. I was done letting other people define me. The next morning, I got up at 5:30, as usual. Tied my curly hair back into a bun. Wore my faded black uniform shirt and the same scuffed-up sneakers. But as I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw someone new. Not a different person, but a different intention. I clocked in like always. Said hello to Mr. Alvarez, who came in every Wednesday for bananas and scratch-off tickets. Smiled at the toddler, who threw apples on the floor. Managed the till, bagged groceries, helped an elderly lady load her trunk. But this time, I wasn't doing it to prove I belonged. I was watching, listening, learning. how inventory was tracked, how scheduling worked, how vendor orders were placed. I noticed what the manager did well and where he messed up. I saw how customers responded to different setups and which promotions got traction. It was like the whole store became a classroom, and I was finally paying attention to the right curriculum. 3 days later, Marcus asked me to train a new guy on the register. I said sure, but I did it my way. I taught him the system, but also how to make people feel seen. I told him what to say when someone is short $1, when to offer water to someone who looked overheated. He stared at me like I was overdoing it. But by the end of the day, 3 customers had asked for my name to compliment me to the manager. I didn't brag. I didn't even mention it. I didn't need applause anymore. One night after closing, I stayed behind. The manager, Greg, was in the office working on vendor calls. I walked in slowly and asked, "Hey, how does franchising work? Like, owning a Harvest Mart location?" He raised an eyebrow. "Why you a skin?" I shrugged. "Just curious." He explained the basics. Franchise fees, location requirements, brand contracts. It was a lot. More than I'd imagined. But not impossible. Not anymore. That night, I opened a new Google Doc. Title, My Store Someday. And I started taking notes. Growing up, I learned early that love wasn't always warm. Sometimes it was cold, measured, and filled with conditions. My mother, Sharon, believed in toughening us up. She said emotions made people weak. "The world doesn't owe you kindness," she'd say, every time I cried. "Be useful, or be invisible." My younger sister, Brianna, was the favorite, and not in a subtle way. She was bubbly, charming, had this glossy kind of confidence that made people fall over themselves to please her. She got the newer clothes, the bigger birthday parties, the extra dessert when we had guests over. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the girl who followed the rules, made her bed without being asked, and brought home straight A's hoping someone would notice. No one did. One Christmas, I remember spending hours decorating the tree while Brianna watched TV in the living room. I wanted everything to be perfect, tinsel evenly spread, no ornaments clashing. I even made handmade tags for the presents. When my mom came home from work, she looked at the tree and said, "You could have let your sister help. It's not about control, Jessica." But Brianna hadn't lifted a finger. She never did. Still, I got the lecture. I always did. I learned to swallow those moments, to breathe through them, to find peace in being unnoticed, because being seen usually meant being criticized. In school, I was invisible too. Not bullied, just skipped over. I was the girl teachers liked because I never caused trouble, but classmates forgot to invite to parties. I was never the first pick, never the loud laugh in the hallway, never the one with birthday balloons tied to her locker. I did what was expected. I didn't ask for more. When I got accepted to Georgia State, I thought things might change. I imagined dorm rooms with fairy lights, midnight food runs with roommates, study groups that turned into friendships. But reality was harsh. I had no financial backing. FAFSA barely covered half. My mom said, "We can't help Jess. We've got Brianna's college savings to protect, and she's already been accepted to UCLA. Flights alone are going to be expensive." I blinked. "Wait, she has a college fund?" Mom looked uncomfortable. "Well, she's always said she wanted to go." "You were never sure?" "No one ever told me there was a fund. I hadn't even known it existed." I nodded. Quietly. That was the moment it really hit me. I wasn't the priority. I was the fallback. The dependable one they could count on to never ask too much. So, I didn't. I deferred my enrollment. Picked up shifts at the local diner. Took night classes when I could. And watched from the sidelines as Brianna posted photos from LA, palm trees, fancy brunches, sorority parties. Every picture felt like a tiny reminder. You stayed behind. She didn't. Still, I tried to be there for my family. I sent money home when Mom's hours got cut at the warehouse. I helped pay for Dad's medication when he got laid off. I drove Brianna to the airport every time she flew out for break, even when she didn't say thank you. But giving became my identity. Not because I was saintly, but because it was the only way I knew to be noticed, to matter. Until even that didn't work. 3 years ago, on my birthday, I waited all day for someone to call. I worked an open-to-close shift, thinking maybe I'd find a voicemail during my break. Nothing. That evening, I checked Facebook and saw photos of my mom, dad, and Brianna at Olive Garden. The caption? Family dinner to celebrate Bree's summer internship. So proud of our girl. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. No one had called. No one had invited me. It wasn't even about the dinner. It was about what it confirmed. I was not part of their definition of family. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't send a dramatic message or pick a fight. I just stopped trying. And no one seemed to notice. Brianna called me 6 months later asking for money to cover rent. Said her roommate bailed, and she didn't want to break her lease. I sent her what I had saved, about $350. She didn't even say thanks, just replied, "You the best, white heart," and never mentioned it again. 2 months after that, I saw her post a photo at a music festival. Tickets for that weekend started at $400. That was the last time I ever sent her a dime. Sometimes I wondered if I was bitter. But it wasn't bitterness. It was grief. Grief for a family that only saw me when they needed something. For a childhood that made me feel like love had to be earned. For years of silence I called loyalty. I didn't hate them. I just didn't feel like I belonged. When I got the cashier job at Harvest Mart, I thought maybe I could build something for myself. Even if it was small. I remember my first day. The manager back then, a gruff older guy named Dave, said, "You're probably going to quit in a week like the last two." I stayed 5 years. I learned every corner of that store, not just how to do the job, but how to hold space for people. The older customers who just wanted to talk. The single moms juggling coupons and crying toddlers. The high school kids nervous about their first job interview. No one noticed me at home, but in that store, I mattered. Still, every time someone asked, "So, is this your full-time thing, or?" I felt the sting. Because the world treated people like me as invisible unless we had a title. Unless we were on a track to something bigger.
Cashier.
Minimum wage. No degree. Unmarried. No kids. Invisible. But I was tired of disappearing. Tired of being the girl who was always there for everyone, except herself. So when Marcus made that snide comment, laughing about how long I'd been here, it didn't just hurt.
It ignited something.
Because they didn't see the hours I spent helping that store run smoother. They didn't see the moments I gave up just to survive. They didn't see me, but I did. And I was done waiting for permission to rise. I returned home that day in silence. Marcus's words echoed in my head. Just a cashier. It wasn't the first time someone had tried to reduce me, but it was the first time I didn't pretend it didn't hurt. I opened the door to my small apartment and dropped my keys on the counter. The clock blinked 10:40, 1 p.m. I had forgotten to eat. Again. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, motionless. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt tired. Bone-deep tired. Of the labels. The weight. The invisible expectations I kept failing to meet. Of giving more than I had, and still never being enough. Why am I the only one who doesn't get to dream? The question crawled into my chest like a whisper and stayed there. The next few weeks passed in slow motion. I kept showing up at work, punching in, smiling at customers, answering the same questions. "You been here long? This just temporary, right? You ever think of doing something bigger?" They all asked it the same way, as if working behind a register was synonymous with failure. As if the way I paid my rent and bought groceries wasn't valid unless it had a corner office attached to it. Then came Brianna's wedding announcement. It arrived on a Monday, a glossy ivory envelope tucked into my mailbox, sealed with gold. Inside was a handwritten card for Mom. "Jess, hope you can come. Brianna would love to see you. Big day for a girl. You can sit with Aunt Patty if you're coming solo. Love, Mom." There was no phone call. No personal message from Brianna. Just a bridal RSVP that made it very clear I was an afterthought. An optional extra at her fairy tale. I stared at the words, "our girl," and something inside me fractured. Because when had I ever been there, girl? I didn't respond right away. I tucked the card into my drawer and pretended it didn't exist. Then a week later, Mom called.
Her tone was light, sugary.
So, you got the invite, right? I did. Great, great. We weren't sure you'd be able to make it, but we still wanted to include you. Bree's really stressed about the seating chart, so if you can't come, just let me know so she doesn't leave your spot open. I paused. You mean if I don't come, you want to fill the seat? Well, I mean, you know how weddings are. It's tight. And with her college friends flying in and all, the message was clear. I wasn't a guest. I was a placeholder. That weekend, I saw Brianna post a wedding prep brunch on Instagram. Dozens of smiling faces around a table, mimosas, custom robes, flower crowns. My mom was there too, laughing, pouring champagne. Not a single person had mentioned it to me. Not even once. I finally responded to the RSVP. Wrote the word decline with a pen that shook slightly in my hand. No explanation. No guilt. No more pretending. 2 days later, I got another call.
It was Aunt Patty.
Jess, honey, I don't know what's going on, but your mama's real upset. She said you're boycotting the wedding. I'm not boycotting. I'm just not attending. Well, you know, families, we don't always get everything perfect, but weddings are meant to heal. I bit my tongue, because there had been no healing, only quiet harm. Years of it. You've always been the quiet one, she continued. Maybe it's time to let that go. I wanted to scream. I wanted to say being quiet wasn't a choice, it was survival. But instead, I just said, thanks, Aunt Patty, but I've made my decision. The day of the wedding, I worked a double shift at the store. I could have asked for it off. Everyone assumed I would. But I didn't want to sit in my apartment thinking about the music, the toasts, the laughter that would never include me. At least at Harvest Mart, I was needed. Mrs. Deakins came through my line with her usual crossword puzzles and denture cream. Jessica, she smiled, you're always so calm. You must have a peaceful life. I nodded, trying to.
She reached for my hand.
That's more than most people ever find. That night, I got a text from Brianna. Brianna.
Hey.
Guess you didn't come, lol. Hope everything's okay. No emotion. No curiosity. Just a brush off in text form. I stared at it for a long time. Typed out a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. And then I turned off my phone. Because if I responded, I'd fall back into the same pattern. Explaining myself. Soothing guilt that wasn't mine. Making space for people who never made space for me. Not this time. The next morning, my manager, a new guy named Raymond, pulled me aside. You ever think of moving up here, Jess? I blinked. Like lead cashier? He chuckled.
No.
I'm talking bigger. Shift supervisor. Maybe even assistant manager. You know this place better than I do. I was stunned. I didn't think I was, noticed. He leaned on the counter. I notice. And more importantly, the customers notice. Half of M wouldn't shop here if you weren't around. You've built something. His words warmed a part of me I'd forgotten existed. Recognition. Not as a backup, but as a foundation. Still, I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom. Not Brianna. Not even Aunt Patty. Because deep down, I knew the pattern. The second they thought I was doing okay, they'd come knocking, with apologies soaked in manipulation. With guilt dressed as love. And I wasn't interested. Weeks passed. The wedding glow faded on Instagram. Brianna posted a picture from Bora Bora, honeymoon bliss. Mom shared a throwback of the perfect day. No one mentioned my absence. Not directly. But a mutual cousin, Kara, texted. Your mom was really upset you didn't come. She said it embarrassed her in front of the guests. That was the moment I knew, truly, deeply, I wasn't part of the story they told about family. Because if your absence embarrasses them more than your pain moves them, that's not love. That's control. So I stopped picking up their calls. I stopped replying to texts that weren't actually conversations, just commands or complaints. I didn't announce it. I didn't post about it. I just disconnected. And in that space, I began to breathe. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened. The slow unfollowing, the quiet exit from the group chats, the unspoken decision not to return calls that never brought comfort, only expectations. I didn't rage. I didn't confront. I simply stepped back. And for the first time in my life, no one noticed, which hurt and healed me. At the same time, the silence was jarring at first. I kept reaching for my phone, expecting the ping of another complaint from my mother or a snide remark disguised as sisterly concern from Brianna. Nothing. And that nothing became my sanctuary. I canceled the automatic monthly transfer I had set up years ago to help Mom with household needs. At the time, I had told myself it was the right thing to do, that helping her was noble. But now, it felt like feeding a machine that never once thanked me. She didn't reach out when the payment stopped. Not to ask if I was okay. Not to wonder if something had happened. She only texted 2 weeks later. Did your account mess up? Didn't get the usual deposit. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, with calm fingers, I deleted the chat thread. That's when I realized. My silence wasn't fear anymore. It was freedom. At work, I threw myself into the rhythm of the store. Stocking shelves. Training the new hires. Handling late-night inventory. Helping customers in a way that felt genuine. No scripts, no fakery. Mr. Daniels, the district manager, came to visit one Friday afternoon. After observing me for a while, he pulled Raymond and me into the office. She's got the presence, he said. Real leadership material. What's holding her back? Raymond smiled. Just waiting on her to believe it too. That sentence clung to me for days. Just waiting on her to believe it too. The quiet in my life became sacred. I stopped checking Facebook. I let birthdays pass without being the one to send the first message. I declined every invitation that felt more like obligation. Instead, I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since I was 16. Each night before bed, I wrote one truth. Not a poem, not a quote, just a truth. Sometimes it was as small as, I feel good when I make tea before bed. Sometimes it was as bold as, they only loved me when I made them comfortable. Every page peeled away layers I didn't know I had. I began waking up earlier. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd walk to the bakery 2 blocks away, order a small coffee, and sit by the window. I'd watch the morning start around me, quietly invisible in the best way possible. One morning, a woman around my age sat down across from me, smiling nervously. Sorry, she said. All the other tables are full. Hope you don't mind. I shook my head. Not at all. She introduced herself as Layla, a travel nurse working temporarily in our town. We made casual conversation, books, coffee, the weird neighbor with the parrots. She didn't ask what I did. She didn't try to place me on a ladder. She saw me as a human, not a resume. We started meeting every Saturday morning. No pressure, no gossip. Just 2 women finding peace in the quiet corners of their lives. At work, things accelerated. I was officially promoted to assistant manager, with a pay raise, benefits, and full decision-making authority over scheduling. The team respected me. Customers asked for me by name. People who once looked past me now leaned in when I spoke. And still, I kept it to myself. No family texts. No social media bragging. No need to prove a point, because this wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. One evening, I cleaned out my closet and found a box of old things, letters from Brianna when she went to college, a birthday card from Mom that had once made me cry, a photograph of me at 16 working my first job in that same store. I looked at that girl, hair tied up, apron askew, awkward smile, and whispered, "You were always more than enough." Then I folded the photo, placed it in my journal, and let the rest burn. Raymond stopped me at closing one night. You ever think about running a store of your own? I laughed, assuming he was joking. He wasn't. Corporate's opening 3 new locations next year. They'll need strong leadership. And people like you, who've built community without even trying, are what we want. It was the first time someone didn't ask if I was ambitious enough. They simply saw the results of everything I already was. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just said, thank you. And for the first time in years, I believed I deserved it. One evening, I got a text from Kara, my cousin. She wrote, "Random, but I overheard Mom saying she bumped into a woman at the salon who said you're the only reason she shops at Harvest Mart. Said you helped her son last year with a job app and now he's in college." I sat with that for a moment, letting it wash over me. Because, without realizing it, in the corners and checkouts and quiet conversations, I had been building a legacy. Not one you post about, one you live. By now, my phone barely rang.
And I liked it that way.
Because when the wrong people stop reaching out, it makes room for the right ones. People like Layla. People like Raymond. People like the customers who left thank you notes on their receipts. And most importantly, people like me, the version of myself I was finally meeting. It was a slow Thursday evening. A light drizzle tapped gently against the storefront windows. I was refilling the end cap display with bags of organic granola when a woman walked in. She wore a long beige coat, a scarf tucked neatly under her chin, and carried an umbrella in one hand. She didn't look like a regular. Her eyes scanned the aisles with precision, like she was searching for something or someone. I offered my usual warm smile. "Let me know if I can help you find anything." She turned and looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. "You're Jessica, right?" I blinked. "Yes, can I help you?" She walked closer, the heels of her boots clicking on the floor. "You don't remember me. That's okay. I wouldn't expect you to." My brows furrowed slightly. "My name's Dr. Valerie Kim. I work at the Easton Behavioral Health Clinic."
She paused.
3 years ago, you walked into my office with a teenage boy named Aaron." I froze. Aaron. I hadn't heard that name in a long time. He had been one of the kids who hung around outside the store, always quiet, often hungry, and clearly carrying a world of pain on his narrow shoulders. I used to give him leftover muffins and encourage him to apply for part-time roles when he turned 16. He never asked for anything. One day, he broke down crying in the parking lot. I sat with him for 2 hours, called Valerie's clinic myself, took the bus with him to his intake appointment. After that, he kind of disappeared from my radar. I only hoped he was okay. "He's in college now," Dr. Kim said softly. "Studying psychology. Wants to help other kids like him. And he talks about you all the time." My hand covered my mouth instinctively. "He said you were the first adult who didn't treat him like a problem to solve," she continued. "You treated him like he mattered." A lump formed in my throat. She reached into her bag and handed me a card. "It's from him. He asked me to give it to you if I ever saw you. And today, I happened to be in town for a conference. The barista next door mentioned your name, and I had to stop in." I opened the card. On the front was a simple photo of a sunrise over a field. Inside, handwritten in neat, slightly slanted script, "Jessica,
You saved me.
not with money, not with advice, but with dignity. You didn't fix me, you saw me. And that was enough to change everything. Thank you for making me feel human again. Aaron." I didn't realize I was crying until Dr. Kim placed a tissue in my hand. "People don't always know the weight they carry for others," she said gently. "But I want you to know, you made a mark." After she left, I sat in the back office for a while, just breathing. So many years I had chased the approval of people who would never see me. And yet this boy, someone I had helped without any expectation, had carried the memory of that kindness like a compass. He hadn't just remembered. He had grown because of it. The next day, I found out that Kara, my cousin, had posted about me on Facebook. A simple photo of our store with a caption that read, "Y'all talk about self-made women, but I have a real one in my own family." Jessica Miller went from being called just a cashier to running the highest performing store in our district. But even more impressive than her title, the fact that I've seen strangers walk out of that place in tears because she reminded them they mattered. Clerks like Jessica keep the world together, not CEOs. The post had gone semi-viral in our town. Dozens of comments poured in. She helped my grandmother after a fall in aisle 6 and stayed until the ambulance came. She once called my daughter beautiful when she was crying after a bad haircut. That moment stayed with her. Jessica's the reason I shop local. Each comment felt like a light being turned on in a house I thought was empty. It was surreal. All those years of being ignored, belittled, and overlooked, and now suddenly I was being seen. But the difference this time? I didn't need their validation. It was nice. It was affirming. But it wasn't my oxygen anymore. Because I had already found my worth in quiet moments, handwritten notes, and the sacred stillness of solitude. The following week, the regional director of Harvest Mart showed up unexpectedly. He walked the aisles slowly, asked the employees about their experience, and finally requested to speak to me privately. "Jessica," he said, "I've been hearing your name from every direction lately.
Customers, staff,
Social media, even our competitors." I blinked, unsure where this was going. "We want to offer you the next franchise opportunity. You'd be the owner. Full stake. Full control." My heart stuttered. "What?" I whispered. "You've built something special here. Not just a store, a community. We believe in rewarding that." That night, I sat at my small kitchen table, reading Aaron's card again. A franchise, ownership, legacy, and all without changing who I was or begging for recognition. It reminded me of something Layla had said over coffee a few days prior, while we laughed over how much we both loved lemon scones. "You're the kind of woman people underestimate until they realize you were the anchor the whole time." She had looked at me with deep sincerity. "And by then you're already gone, building your own ship." I never needed to prove anything to my family, because the right people had seen the truth. Strangers had remembered. Aaron had remembered. Dr. Kim had remembered. Kara had remembered. And most importantly, I remembered who I was, who I had always been. And that was enough. 2 weeks after Kara's viral post and the franchise offer, my phone buzzed with a message I didn't expect.
Mom.
"Hi, Jess. Can we talk sometime soon? We were thinking of coming down for a weekend. Maybe next Saturday." I stared at the screen. No apology. No acknowledgement of the years of silence, the snide remarks, or the time she told me to be grateful I at least had a job, while praising Rachel's 3rd promotion in 6 months. Just, "Can we talk?"
I didn't reply.
The next day, Rachel sent me a long-winded text. "Hey, Jessica. Mom said she messaged you. I know things were tense for a while, but I think it'd be good if we all just moved forward. Life's too short to stay upset, right? A peace offering, but one without actual peace. No ownership. No healing. Just a desire to skip the consequences and pretend nothing had ever happened." The part that stung me most? Rachel had shared Kara's Facebook post on her own timeline without tagging me, as if she was proud of me, but only when it earned her social points. Not when I was standing in front of her. 2 days later, my mother called. I didn't answer, so she left a voicemail. "Jessica, it's Mom. I'm really confused by all this silence. You know we love you, we've always wanted the best for you. Maybe we didn't say it enough, but you know actions matter more than words. Right?" I sat back on my couch, listening to the message with a strange calm. Her voice sounded rehearsed, as if she had gone over the lines with Rachel or someone else.
It wasn't about me.
It was about the appearance of making things right. Damage control. A week later, they showed up, unannounced. I was at the store, helping a new cashier handle the inventory system when one of my team members said, "Jessica, there's a woman out front asking for you. Says she's your mom." I sighed, walked out to the front where my mother, Rachel, and Uncle Lee stood, all 3 of them wearing stiff smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Jessica," my mom said, stepping forward with arms wide open. I didn't move. "Why are you here?" I asked quietly. Rachel tried to take the lead. "We were just in town and thought we'd drop by. Heard some big news about the store." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the franchise offer? Or the fact that I'm finally being noticed now that people outside the family are paying attention?" They all stiffened. "No one's saying you weren't doing great things before," Uncle Lee added quickly. "We just didn't know how much it meant to you." "That's the thing," I replied. "You didn't even try to know." There was a pause. My mother glanced nervously around, aware that other customers were starting to notice. "We're not here to argue," she said. We just wanted to clear the air. Maybe grab lunch. I shook my head.
No.
Rachel's expression hardened. Why are you being so difficult, Jessica? We came all the way here. We're trying. No, you're performing, I said firmly. For yourselves, not for me. Another pause. Can we at least talk somewhere private? Mom asked, her tone clipped. No, I said again, softer this time. You don't get to skip the healing and jump straight to the happy ending. Later that night, Rachel messaged me again. If you're really not going to let this go, maybe take down Kara's post? It's making some of the family uncomfortable. There it was. The real reason they had come. Not to reconnect. Not to apologize. But to clean up the optics. To make sure no one thought too poorly of them for pushing away the very person who had become the family's quiet success story. They weren't sorry they hurt me.
They were sorry I didn't keep quiet about it.
I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone and lit a candle in my tiny living room. I sat with the silence and let it wash over me. There was no need to argue. No need to prove anything. I had already won. And I hadn't raised my voice once. 3 days later, Layla came over with sushi and iced matcha, dropping onto my couch like she belonged there. I saw the comments on Kara's post, she said, scrolling through her phone. Your family's real mad you didn't delete it, huh? They're mad that I didn't pretend everything's fine just to keep them comfortable. She nodded slowly. Do you regret it? I thought for a long moment. No, I said. Not even a little. She smiled.
Good.
Because sometimes the only way people learn is when the silence becomes too loud to ignore. A few weeks later, Harvest Mart officially handed over the franchise paperwork.
It was real now.
My name on every document. My vision, my rules, my store. I decided to call it the Root and Rise Market, a nod to planting deep roots and rising anyway, no matter how rocky the soil. It wasn't just a store. It was a living, breathing reflection of everything I had built, piece by piece, without applause. And the family who once called me just a cashier? They were watching from the sidelines, trying to catch up to a train they never thought would leave the station without them. But it had. And I wasn't looking back. 3 weeks into owning the franchise, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text. An actual, handwritten letter. Neatly folded in a soft lavender envelope with my name written in flowing cursive. It had no return address. I opened it with hesitant fingers, wondering if it might be some strange complaint or passive-aggressive family jab sent the old-fashioned way. But it wasn't. It was from an elderly woman named Eloise Patterson. The first lines made my breath catch. Dear Jessica, you probably don't remember me, but I remember you. About 6 years ago, I came into your store when my husband had just been moved into hospice care. I was a mess. I couldn't even remember what aisle the soup was in. I was crying in front of the pickles. You didn't say anything to embarrass me. You just walked over, placed a hand gently on my shoulder, and asked if I needed help. You stayed with me until I stopped shaking. You helped me find every item on my list. And then you paid for my groceries without telling me until I got to the register. You said, go be with him. Everything else can wait. Tears welled in my eyes. I had forgotten that day. It had been a blur, one of many where I worked extra shifts, went home to a too-quiet apartment, and told myself kindness still mattered even when no one noticed. Eloise hadn't forgotten. I've been following the story online. I saw the post from that young lady, Kara. Was it? What you did for her doesn't surprise me. Because you did it for me too. And I'm sure you've done it for many others. You don't just stock shelves, Jessica. You restore people.
Quietly.
Without needing applause. I never said thank you properly. So here it is from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. You reminded me that even on my worst day, I wasn't invisible.
And you,
Jessica Miller, are anything but just a cashier. I pressed the letter to my chest. For a long time I didn't move, didn't speak. I just let myself feel. That night, I sat by the window in my small office above the store. The streetlights glowed warm gold, casting quiet shadows on the floor. I thought about all the times I'd been told I was too sensitive, too quiet,
too soft.
And yet it was that quiet softness that had helped Eloise. That softness that had saved Kara from fainting in aisle 3. That softness that had changed the trajectory of my own life. Not because I fought loudly, but because I refused to stop caring. It wasn't a weakness. It was a superpower. The next day, Layla came by with another matcha and a smirk. "You've been in the clouds lately," she teased. I handed her the letter. She read it silently, eyes scanning each line. When she finished, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "She remembered," she whispered. She felt seen. We both sat quietly for a few moments. "She's not the only one," Layla finally said. "Your team talks about you like you're magic. You've made this place feel like more than a store. It's a sanctuary. You gave that to everyone, even when you didn't get it yourself." I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled and let the truth settle deep inside me. For once, I believed it too. 2 weeks later, Kara returned to town. She didn't come empty-handed. She walked into the Root and Rise market holding a small canvas, a painting she'd done herself. It showed a woman in a simple grocery uniform, but behind her back, she wore a glowing golden cape. The title painted in small script across the bottom. "Everyday Hero. This is for you," Kara said. "I don't know what you see when you look in the mirror, but this is what I see. What we all see." I took the painting with trembling fingers. "It's beautiful," I whispered.
She grinned.
"So are you." I hung the painting right above the employee break room, so every team member would see it every single day.
Because it wasn't just about me.
It was about all of us. All the people who show up every day, even when they're exhausted. Who offer kindness, even when it's not returned. Who give, not to be seen, but because it's who they are. People like me. People like Kara. People like Eloise. One evening, I closed the shop early. I stood in the center of the empty store, breathing in the stillness. The shelves stood tall, not just with groceries, but with stories. Each aisle held memories. The soup aisle where Eloise cried. The cereal aisle where Kara nearly fainted. The snack aisle where I once helped a little boy count out exact change so he could buy a birthday bar for his mom. This place had been my hiding place once. Now it was my stage. My story. My proof that kindness was never wasted. I walked out to the sidewalk and looked up at the new sign above the door. The Root and Rise Market, franchise owner, Jessica Miller. It glowed in soft golden light, just like that invisible cape Kara painted. I smiled, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone to see me. I saw myself. 3 months into the store reopening, right around the holidays, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a number I hadn't saved, but I knew it instantly. Megan, the former manager who once laughed as I was called just a cashier. The one who never stood up for me when I was ridiculed, overlooked, and undervalued. "Hey Jess, long time. I saw the article about the store. Big congrats. Crazy what life throws at us, huh? Anyway, I was wondering if you were hiring for manager roles. I'd love to reconnect. Let me know." The audacity made my heart pound, not in anger, but in disbelief. She wasn't reaching out to apologize. She was reaching out because she wanted something. It was the same old game, just dressed up in emojis and false cheer. Later that same week, I got a voice message from Kimberly, the district supervisor who once told me to stay in my lane when I had offered a store-wide improvement idea. "Jessica, it's Kimberly. Wow, I just heard about your position, franchise owner. That's amazing. Listen, a few of us from corporate were talking about possibly doing a little spotlight story on you for the internal newsletter. Maybe you could come by the regional meeting next quarter and speak? Let me know. We'd love to reconnect." The same people who minimized me were now hoping I'd validate them. Invite them into my story. Use my light to soften their legacy. A few days later, my father called. The screen lit up with his name, and for a full minute, I just stared. We hadn't spoken in nearly a year. Not since he'd said, "Some people just don't rise very far. You should accept that." I let the call go to voicemail. Then I played it. "Jessica, it's your dad. Listen, I was thinking we should talk. Maybe meet up? Your mother's been asking about you. We all miss you. Let's start fresh, okay? Life's too short. There it was. The olive branch made of thorns, wrapped in guilt, coated in performance. It didn't sound like love. It sounded like damage control. I sat on my bed that night, the voicemail still playing in my head. Old Jessica would have called back immediately. She would have rushed in to fix everything, make everyone feel better, absorb the discomfort. But I wasn't her anymore. I didn't need to explain myself. I didn't need to be understood, or forgiven, or validated by the people who once shrunk me. I was done with shrinking. That weekend, my parents showed up at the store. I saw them through the glass front doors. My father standing rigidly, my mother clutching her handbag like a peace offering. Layla stood beside me. Want me to tell them you're not here? I shook my head. It's okay. I've got it. I walked out onto the sidewalk. My mother's face brightened. Jessica, we were just in the neighborhood. My father cut in. You've done well. Real well. We were proud when we heard. Proud now. Now that I had value. Now that I had a title. Now that strangers on the internet were calling me inspiring. My mother's voice softened. We just want things to go back to normal. Holidays, family dinners. Maybe you could come home sometime? I looked at both of them. They looked older, smaller, as if the weight of their own choices had finally begun to show. I nodded slowly. Then I spoke gently.
No.
That's all I said. Just one word. No yelling. No accusations. No list of receipts or emotional punishments. Just truth. A quiet, firm no. My mother's face flickered. Jessica. I held up a hand. I'm not angry, I said softly. But I'm not going backwards either. I'm building something beautiful and peaceful, and I can't do that with people who only want me around when I'm convenient. My father stepped forward. So, what? You're just going to shut us out forever? No, I said again, still calm. I'm just choosing peace. That means different boundaries. Ones that protect who I've become. They didn't argue. They didn't beg. They just stood there, realizing that the girl who once begged for a seat at their table was now building her own table, and they weren't invited to sit at it. Not because I hated them, but because I loved myself more. Back inside, Layla watched me walk in. She didn't say anything at first, just handed me a glass of water and let me sit with the moment. I'm proud of you, she said eventually. Me too, I whispered. And for the first time, I meant it. That night, I took down the last picture I had on my bedroom wall of me with my family. It wasn't out of spite. It was closure. I replaced it with the painting Kara gave me, the one with the golden cape. Because that's who I was now. Not the girl trying to prove her worth, but the woman who knew she already had it. Sometimes, I still hear their words in my head. You're just a cashier. Like it was a curse. Like it meant I had no dreams, no brain, no future. I used to flinch every time someone said it, as if cashier was some kind of failure badge I had to wear.
But now?
Now, I smile when I hear it. Because that title didn't define me. It launched me. I was just a cashier who learned how to listen to people, how to solve problems on the fly, how to handle pressure with a smile. I was just a cashier who showed up when no one else did, stayed late, fixed what was broken, quietly, thanklessly, and consistently. I was just a cashier until I wasn't, until I became the owner. Let me say something to the woman who's watching this, quietly crying, because you know exactly what this feels like. To be underestimated.
To be dismissed.
To be told that your worth is based on your job title, your relationship status, your bank account. Let me tell you something they don't want you to know. You don't need them to recognize your value. You just need to stop letting their blindness convince you that you're invisible. You might be doing something ordinary right now. Maybe you're working in a diner, or folding clothes at a store. Maybe you're a receptionist, or a janitor, or a nurse's aide, or a substitute teacher. And they call it just this, just that. Don't believe them. There is no such thing as just when you're showing up with heart, with kindness, with work ethic. They only say just because they can't see how powerful you really are yet. But that doesn't mean the power isn't real. You are not just anything. You are a foundation. You are a seed. You are momentum in motion. And sometimes the people around you will treat your potential like a punchline, because if they admitted how bright your light really is, they'd have to reckon with how long they've tried to dim it. So don't wait for them to clap. Don't wait for the promotion, the applause, the validation from the people who never saw you in the first place. Build it yourself. Step by step. Brick by brick. Quietly if you must. Boldly when you're ready. And when the day comes, and it will come, when they finally see what you've built,
they'll act surprised.
Wow, you really made something of yourself. Smile. And know in your bones that you were never waiting for their permission. You were just busy becoming. If no one else tells you this today, let me. You are enough. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are not just anything. You are becoming something they cannot define. And one day, they'll wish they'd treated you better when you were still within reach. But by then, you'll be too far gone, not in bitterness, not in vengeance, but in freedom. So here's your quote, the one you can carry with you. They called me just a cashier. But I was never just anything. I was the storm they didn't see coming. And now, I walk into my own store. I unlock my own doors. I pay my own team, well, I mentor young women who remind me of the girl I used to be, hungry, quiet, hopeful. And when someone calls her just anything, I step in, and I remind them who they're talking to. Because we don't say just anymore. We say watch me.